What is the lesson that we shall take away with us from Passover, from the Seder, which we just celebrated? Unfortunately, not everything is positive. We are living in very dangerous times, and we have witnessed a tremendous transformation in the attitude of the nations towards the Jews, especially troubling in America. This was unimaginable. The massive demonstrations at supposedly elite universities like Columbia, where you have students masked and chanting and openly calling for the destruction of Israel, the elimination of the Jews. And the most troubling aspect of it is that you can do it, they can get away with it. How is this a legitimate exercise of free speech? This is violence. This is terrorism. This is intimidation. And the fact is that the government institutions don't do anything about it is the most frightening thing. This brings us back to Nazi Germany, where there was a complete breakdown of law and order, and the Nazi gangs roamed the streets, intimidating everyone, until, of course, they took over. They were elected. And we know where that led to. What is the cause for the anti-Semitism? It's a primitive phenomenon. Many have tried to explain it, not in terms of intrinsic factors, that it's something with the Jew, but extraneous factors. So, for example, the Zionists maintain that the reason for anti-Semitism is because we're not independent. We don't have our own state. How false, how superficial that has proven to be. Today, with the state of Israel and its development and its great successes, it's the target of almost universal hatred. So it's not because of the fact that the Jews have a state or don't have a state. I think that we said it in the Haggadah, V'hi She'amda, and that is which stood for us, because it wasn't just one person or one time, one place where they hated us. Rather, b'chol dor v'dor, in every generation, they stand up against us to destroy us. So it's telling us that anti-Semitism is more of pretty much an eternal phenomenon until the advent of the Mashiach, until Messiah comes, when things will change. What is the reason for this? Why do they hate the Jews? There's no people that's more productive, that's more creative, that's more helpful, that's more compassionate than the Jews. And that's why they were invited in through the course of their history. Different countries had economic difficulties. They brought in the Jews to rescue the situation until jealousy set in, and then they were driven out of those countries. It's an amazing aspect of history, how the Jews were invited in so many places and driven out subsequently, once the nations had gotten what they needed. I think the answer is provided, or one of the answers, one aspect of it, in the book of Psalms, Tehillim, in the 2nd chapter, when King David says, "Why do the nations clamor? Why do the peoples plot futilities? Kings of the earth stand ready. Leaders have banded together against the Lord and his anointed." So what he's saying over here is two things. First of all, the real target, which they won't say, but the real target of the hatred is really the Lord. It's the creator of the universe. There's a lot of resentment because people are too egotistical. They don't want to recognize God because that means that they have to live according to his moral code. But then it says the Lord and his anointed. Of course, the question is, who is his anointed? And the answer is very simple. Any person that's honest, Christian, Muslim, whatever it is, and you read the Torah, it's the Jewish people, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To your descendants have I given this land. And God revealed himself and gave the Torah, which is the only revelation ever. He gave it to the Jewish people. And that is really the problem. It's not an accident that both other religions, Christianity and Islam, recognize the truthfulness of the revelation at Sinai. The only thing is, if that's the case, so why don't you respect the Jews? Why don't you keep the moral code of the Torah? They went ahead and they created their own, because egotistically they could not stand the idea of being subservient to the Jews for their religious behavior, religious morality. So by the Christians, for example, the so-called, what they call the Old Testament, that itself is proof of the fact that there is no New Testament, because you're acknowledging that God gave the Torah and God said that this is eternal. You can't add to it, you can't subtract, there'll be no change. And the same applies to Islam as well. The underlying hatred has a lot to do with jealousy, has a lot to do with religious competition. Although we're not trying to impose our beliefs on anyone, our task is simply to keep the Torah, to explain the Torah for those who are interested, and those who want to convert can convert, but we don't presume, we certainly don't pressure anybody. For if we suspect that a person has ulterior motives, then he's not supposed to convert to Judaism. This is something that we need to consider very, very carefully. We can't blind ourselves to the problem of anti-Semitism. We are going through a revolutionary change, which we have not seen the likes of since the days prior to the advent of Hitler, and then Hitler. And we thought we had it safe. We're in America. America will protect us. Yeah, America will protect us, but the institutions of America are not functioning properly. They're not standing up against terrorism. These are serious things that we need to consider.